Hello dear students, welcome back. Today we will continue reviewing our grammar topics that we have studied so far. In our last lesson we talked about present simple and present progressive and the difference between them. And today we will talk about past tenses. We will start with past simple and go on with past progressive. How do we use them? What are the differences between them? And let's start with past simple tense. Okay, when we are talking about past simple, there is only one use of past simple, and we are talking about actions that happened and ended in the past, and they were short actions. The grammar rule we use with past simple is verb to form. Our basic sentence structure starting with subject, verb form, which is verb to in this case, object, place, and time. How do we do verb to form? We have two categories. We divide into two. First one is the regular verbs, and the second one is irregular verbs. Regular verbs, we only add ed or d at the end of our verb. For example, listen becomes listened, or work becomes worked. Let's say die only gets D, for example, died. These are the regular verbs we have in verb to. Some examples. In irregular verbs, the whole vocab structure changes. For example, run becomes ran. Eat becomes ate. Think becomes thought. Have becomes had. These are some of the examples for irregular verbs. Let's have a look at few of them. Let's start with bring. Becomes brought. Buy becomes bought. Catch, caught. Cut remains the same, is cut again. Draw, drew. Fly, flew, for example. Find, found. Swim, swam. Forget, forgot. Get, got. Come, came. Write, wrote. Read. When we are spelling, when we are writing, read, it remains the same, but we pronounce this one as read and this one as read. Read becomes read. Let's say forgive, forgave. Sell, sold, for example. These are some examples for irregular verbs, verb to form. Okay, let's talk about be's verb 2 form. We have studied this. Be is an irregular verb. And in present, we use it as am, is, or are, according to our subject pronoun. But in past tenses, we use be as, was, or were. Which subjects get was? I, he, she, and it. When we are talking about were, we use with you, we, and they. These are the affirmative form of be in past tenses. For example, let's turn some present sentences into past ones. I am at home. This is present. I was at home is past. You are a student is present. You were a student is in past. Let's do them in negative. I was at home. I wasn't at home. Or you were a student. You weren't a student. And if I want to make a question form, I am going to take be, which is was, were in this case, into the beginning of the sentence, start my sentence with them, then our subject, and whatever comes next. It can be an adjective, it can be object, place. So let's turn them. I wasn't at home. I'm going to ask a question. Were you at home? You weren't a student. Were you a student? Let's give answers for both of these questions. If I want to give a positive answer, I can say, yes, I was. This is my short answer. If I want to give a long answer, I can say, yes, I was at home. And the negative answer is, no, I wasn't. And if I want to continue from here, no, I wasn't at home, it can be our long answer. Were you a student? Yes, I was. Short answer, yes, I was a student. Long answer. Or a negative response I want to give. No, I wasn't a student. These are how do we make be in the past form, affirmative, negative, and in question form. Let's have a look at time expressions. And then we will continue with verb 2 sentence examples. Let's start with, for example, last night, or last week, last Tuesday, last month, last year, last summer. Or I can give a date in the past. For example, in 1996 or in 2002. We also have ago. For example, 2 weeks ago, 3 days ago, 5 years ago. Or I want to give a period of time. For example, I want to talk about how I was when I was a child. We will use when with past simple a lot. For example, when I was 5. It can be a time expression. Or when she was a student. When we were in England. This phrases gives us a time period, which we also use as time expressions to define a time. Let's start giving examples. By the way, all of these time expressions we have discussed so far, all of them gets at the end of our sentences. When I was a child, I walked to school every day. In this sentence, actually, this is a combined sentence. You can see two full sentences. Each sentence has its own verb, subject, and object. But this also gives us a period of time, which is our time expression, indicates a time. And you can see our verb to in each sentences. Walk is a regular verb. That's why we only added ed at the end of it. She called me yesterday. You can see our time expression at the end of the sentence. I graduated from college 3 years ago. Let's continue with examples. My mother bought these flowers from the farmer's market. In this sentence, we have an irregular verb, which is bought. And the verb 1 form is buy. Okay, how do we make negative form of past simple when we're talking about verb sentences? We use didn't after any subject. It doesn't change depending on the subjects we have. And after that, we use verb 1. We only use verb 2 form, past form of our verb, in the affirmative positive sentences. In negative form and in question sentences, we use verb 1 because didn't on its own both gives us the past meaning and the negative meaning. Let's turn this sentence into a negative one. My mother didn't buy these flowers from farmer's market. You can see that after didn't, I use verb 1 form. But in the affirmative sentence, we use the verb 2 form. Now we are going to write some affirmative sentences and then transform them into the negative ones. She caught some fishes yesterday. You can see the verb to here. This is an irregular verb, the past form of catch, and I'm going to make it a negative one. She didn't catch some fishes yesterday. I turned it into verb 1 after didn't. They invited us over dinner. This is a regular one. You can see the ed here. And if I want to make it a negative sentence, they didn't invite us over dinner. This is the negative form of this sentence. Let's talk about question form. We take did at the end of beginning of the sentence, subject, again, verb 1 form, and object, place, etc. Did you text me? I overslept. In the first sentence, you can see the question form. We have did it in the beginning, subject, verb 1. And in the second sentence, you can see that this is an affirmative one. This is an irregular verb. And the verb 1 form of this verb is oversleep. Let's give answers for this question. This is a typical yes-no question. I can answer in a positive or a negative way. Yes, I did is my short answer. If I want to give a long positive answer, I would say, yes, I texted you, etc. Now, as we talked about in present simple, you have to be careful with did here. Because in the short sentence we use it, but in the long answer we don't use any did. And the reason for that is actually when you don't see the yes in the long sentence, you can see a full affirmative past simple sentence. And we don't use did in an affirmative sentence in past simple. This is the reason that we use did in the short answer and the reason why we don't use did in the long affirmative answer. Let's look at the negative one. No, I didn't. This is my short answer. If I want to give a long one, no, I didn't text you. Now you may ask, we omit did in the long answer when we're talking about a positive one, but a negative one, we still kept didn't in both of them. And the reason for that is, in the long answer, if you don't see no in this sentence, I didn't text you. This is a full negative sentence created in past simple. And we already use didn't in a negative sentence in past simple. So if you actually understand the logic of it, you don't have to memorize anything. Okay, let's have a look from the beginning, and then we are going to talk about past progressive. Where do we use past simple? Actions that happened in the past, and we're talking about short actions. We use verb to form in past simple after our subject, and there are two ways to make a verb to form. First one, we have regular verbs, and the second category is irregular verbs. In regular ones, we add d or ed at the end of our verb, and in the irregular ones, our whole word changes. We have given some examples here, and then we talked about be's verb to form. Be is actually an irregular verb. So that's why we use it as emizar in the present and was-were in past simple. With I, he, she, it subject pronouns, we use was, and with rest of them, we use were. We transformed some present tenses into the past ones. I am at home, I was at home. You're a student, you were a student. And then we did the negative and the question forms of them. Then we talked about time expressions. Any time expression that starts with last refers to past simple. It wouldn't be wrong to say. Or we can give a date, but in the past. And then we can also use ago. 2 weeks ago, 3 days, or 5 years ago. And all of them comes at the end of our sentences. We talked about when. It can also represent a time, so we can call it sort of a time expression. When I was 5, when she was a student, they represent a time period. She called me yesterday. Then we have given some examples. She called me yesterday. This is a regular verb. We added ed. I graduated from college 3 years ago. Again, this is a regular one. When I was a child, I walked to school every day. This gives us a time period, a period of time. So I can understand that this happened in the past. Then we have given some examples using the irregular verbs, and we jump to the negative forms. Now, actually, the only place we use verb to form is our affirmative positive sentences. Because in the rest of them, negative ones or the question ones, we use verb 1 with didn't or did. My mother didn't buy these flowers from the farmer's market. Then we transformed some affirmative sentences into the negative ones. She caught some fishes yesterday. You can see the verb to form in the positive sentence, but in the negative one, didn't and verb 1. In our second example, again, you can see our verb to. This is a regular one. And in the negative one, we use didn't and verb 1. And we talked about question form of past simple. We take did into the beginning of our sentence, then which subject we're using doesn't matter, it comes right after it. Then we use our again verb 1 form because did on its own give the sentence a past meaning. Did you text me? You can see the verb 1. Then we talked about the difference between short answer and long answer. It is pretty similar to the ones we have discussed in present simple because in the short answer we use the auxiliary verb, but in the long one we omit it. And the reason for that is you shouldn't see yes in the long answer. You can see that I texted you is a full sentence on its own. It is a meaningful sentence. And In an affirmative sentence in past simple, we don't use did. We only transform our verb into a verb to form. But in the negative answers, we already use didn't in a negative sentence. That's why we didn't omit it. First of all, let's remember, how do we do past progressive? The difference between past simple and past progressive is, if we want to show past simple here, we would show it like this. In the past, it happened and it ended. But if I want to show past progressive, the action happened for a while. We have a time period here. This is what we call is long action, and past simple we call it short action. So we can say that when we're using past progressive, we're talking about actions that lasted for a while in the past. This is the difference between past simple and past progressive. We can show it like this on our timelines. How do we make our sentences? After our subject, we use be verb to form, which is was, were, and then we add ing at the end of our verb, which makes after I, he, she, its subject pronouns, we use was, verb ing, and after you, we, they, subject pronouns, we use were, verb ing. So this is the basic form of past progressive, but when do we use it? With what purpose? We want to indicate actions, events that lasted for a period of time. And when we're doing that, actually our goal is to state an action that happened in the past for a while. But our main aim is to talk about two events interrupting each other or happening at the same time. And when we are doing it, we're going to use past simple and past progressive in the same sentence mostly. So we can say that we don't use past progressive on its own that much. If we are going to use on its own past progressive, someone may have asked you, what were you doing at that time? If someone asks you specifically, what were you doing, you can answer it in one sentence using past progressive. But mostly we don't do that because also, just like in Turkish, it doesn't mean that much. It's like half of a story. For example, speaking of which, you can use also this past progressive to talk about while telling a memory, a story, a novel. It can all be used with past progressive. The thing is, we are going to use while and when a lot when we're talking about past tenses. Because, as I have said before, we are going to indicate actions that happened at the same time or one interrupted each other. We're going to talk about them, and when we're talking about them, we're going to use these time conjunctions a lot. Okay, so first is specific question. Second is actions happening at the same time. Or actions that interrupt each other. First of all, let's give an example. For example, I was doing my homework yesterday. This is a grammatically correct sentence, but in meaning-wise, when someone says this sentence to you, you don't get the full story because it's like half of a meaning. We need the other half. In order to do that, in order to make sense, someone else may have asked you a question. For example, what were you doing yesterday at 7 p.m.? Then, if that question is directed to you, then this response would make sense. Let's give another response. I was drinking coffee with my friends. This is a specific question. It can be your mother, it can be someone else who is wondering about you, or it can be a police interrogation. So this question may be asked to you. Or for example, who were you talking to? Again, same grammar rule. I was talking to Aisha, let's say. In the meantime, we have seen the question form of past progressive. This is a classic WH question form, and after our WH question, we have our be verb to form, subject, verb ing. We have a time expression here, also again time expression. And in the answer you can see an affirmative past progressive sentence starting with subject, be verb to form. Our subject pronoun is I, that's why we used was. Verb ing and object. Let's have a look at the second one. Again, this is a typical WH question starting with who. Then we have our be verb to form, our subject, and verb ing. When it comes to the answer, you can see that again this is an affirmative sentence starting with subject, be verb to form, verb ing, and you can see the objects. Let's give a few more examples. How were you feeling last week? This is again a specific question, so that's why we used past progressive to create this sentence. Let's say I was feeling okay. Now, let's examine this one. Starting with a WH question, our be verb to form, subject, verb ing, and you can see a time expression at the end of the question. When it comes to the answer, starting with subject, be verb to form, verb ing, and object. What about a yes-no question using past progressive? Let's have a look at that one. Were you cheating on your exam? You can see that this is a yes-no question because it starts with the auxiliary verb of the tense. I can answer in two ways. We have two possible answers. One of them is positive, one of them is negative. Yes, I was. If I continue from here, yes, I was cheating on my exam would be our long affirmative answer. And if I said no, I wasn't, or no, I wasn't cheating, it would be our negative, short and long answer. As you can see, this is a yes-no question. That's why we started our sentence with be verb to form, which is verb, subject, verb ing, and the rest is not that important. When it comes to here, think it like an affirmative full sentence, subject, be verb to form, and verb ing. Let's quickly do like a chart, and then we will talk about how do we combine past simple and past progressive. In the affirmative one, we said that after subject was verb ing. In the question form, we take them into the beginning of the sentence, and right after that, subject, verb ing. In the negative one, after subject, we use wasn't or weren't, depending on which subject we're using, verb ing. Now, let's combine past simple and progressive sentences. We will talk about two actions that are happening at the same time in the past, or one of them interrupted the other one. First of all, you may remember that we use when and while quite a lot. These are our time conjunctions that we use. After when, I mean not after, but in the sentence that contains when, we use past simple. In the sentence that contains while, we use past progressive. I want to talk about an action that interrupted the other one. For example, I was cooking dinner when you called me. You can see that we have two full and meaningful sentences here. One of them is still here because it has a subject, a verb, and this is enough for us to create a sentence. In the second one, you can also see the subject and the verb form. So we have two main sentences combined with the time conjunction. And let's have a look at the timeline. I was cooking dinner. This is the long action we have in this sentence. You called me. This is the short action. So in the past, I was cooking. It happened for a while. Then you called me and interrupted my action. So we can say that short action which is past simple interrupts long action which is past progressive in the timeline. You have to decide which one interrupts which. So it's basically thinking of the actions which can be done in a long period of time, which can be a short action. For example, while my sister was sleeping, I dropped my phone. In this one, as you can see, we have a while, a time conjunction. And in that sentence, if you are using while as your time conjunction to combine these two sentences, you have to use past progressive, which you can see here was sleeping. Be, past form, and verb ing. So I understand that this is my long action, which is built with past progressive. Let's have a look at the second sentence. You can see that verb to is used here. So this is the short action we have. How else I could give the same meaning using these sentences? I could also write down this sentence like this. I dropped my phone while my sister was sleeping. You can change the order of the sentences. It doesn't matter as long as they are the same. Or if I want to rewrite this sentence using when, I have to put it in the sentence where I used past simple. When I, which is the second one, if you look at here, when I dropped my phone, comma use is very important. My sister was sleeping. You can also, again, change the order of these sentences. My sister was sleeping when I dropped my phone. So as you can see, we have 4 sentences here, and all of them give the same meaning. But you can choose whatever you want in these 4 sentences. They all give us the same meaning, but you have to use when and while correctly. That's our only condition. Let's do one more. While I was driving home, I had an accident. Let's have a look at this one. In the first sentence, there is a while. And you can see the past progressive use in this sentence. Was and verb ing. When you look at the second one, you can see that this is the short action and we use verb to, which is past simple here. Comma, again, very important. Now I will also write this sentence. I will give the same meaning, but I will use when this time. When I had an accident, I was driving home. Okay, let's do one more example. When she called me, I was having shower. This is clearly the short action in this combined sentence. I can understand it both from when and both because verb to use in the sentence. And when you look at the second one, you can see the past progressive use in the sentence. I could also change the orders of the sentences. It doesn't matter, it will still give the same meaning. Now what we have did so far was to combine short and long actions. We have two sentences in one. For example, have a look at this one. We have two sentences and we did one of them short, one of them long. Now we are going to look at both short and long combined sentences. When I arrived home, my dad called me. Now I have two short actions in this sentence. First one, built with when and verb to, is a short one. I look at the second one, it is also created with verb to, so it makes them both short actions. It's not wrong, but this time what it tells us, I arrived home here and my dad called me here. They happen right after each other. If I would say, when my dad called me, I arrived home. Now in this one, it is still a correct sentence, but their meanings are different. In this one, my dad called me here before, and then here I arrived home. Okay, dear students, this is it for today's lesson. I hope you understood and enjoyed it. Make sure you review the tenses that we have reviewed so far, present tenses and past simple and progressive. Take care of yourselves. See you on our next lesson.